welcome to you both, welcome to you all. Bueno, buenos días. Hoy vamos a hacer la sesión en inglés, así que permitidme que pase al inglés. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this 21st CDTI-SOST online webinar. Since we started in April, I think we've been through most of the hottest topics for European research and innovation. And today we have another one, a real interesting one, and we are pleased here to bring the InvestEU program on board. You can hear me properly, no problem? Perfect.
Yes,
So
all right.
Very good, Filippo. So I'll go on. InvestEU is what we could call the investment plan for Europe. As from 2021, it will gather under the same roof what we have today, meaning the famous Juncker Plan, or European Fund for Strategic Investment, if I'm not wrong, and 13 other financial instruments currently available under the Connecting Europe Facility, ECFIN, COSME, and others. If I have to keep one message for today's session to give you an idea of the importance of this program, is that its main objective is triggering at least 650 billion euros. I would repeat, 650 billion euros in additional investment by using EU budget guarantee to crowd in other investors. And today, to present this program, we have the great chance to count with two of the most knowledgeable speakers of the subject, to whom, by the way, we have already briefed on the composition of the audience and told them that most of you and us, I would say, are not financial experts, but rather potential users of the financial instruments that this InvestEU could put in place in the future. Okay, so having said that, I will introduce very briefly the speakers. First, we will have Filippo Munisteri. He is a team leader on social investment at the unit coordination with the EIB, EBRD and IFIs in DG ECFIN, and he will give us a general overview of the initiative. And then we will have, well, and probably he will say something as well on what happened yesterday, because I think InvestEU will have 1 more billion to deal with, so I'm sure he will give us some hints on what happened in the negotiation and what happened yesterday. And then we will have Katerina Borunska. She's policy officer at the EIC Task Force, Financial Instruments Unit, and she will be dealing with the InvestEU Research and Innovation window. So she will give us her take on the research and innovation aspect of InvestEU, and probably give us some hints on potential instruments or concrete instruments which could be implemented in the area of research and innovation. And finally, just to make the things clear since the beginning, if you agree, Caterina, Filippo, I will give you the floor to both for your presentations, and we will keep the questions and answers for the end. Is that fine for you?
Sure.
Very good. Then the questions, as usual, through the Slido platform. So please go to slido.com, SOST difunde, and as they start, you can send us all your questions and comments. And without further delay, then Filippo, Caterina, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll try to share my screen and see whether we managed to screen number 2. Okay, so that now you should be able to see the presentation.
Perfect.
I hope it's okay. Yeah, you can see it very well. Bueno, entonces, hola, buenos días a todos. Gracias al equipo de CDTI por invitarnos. And we are going to proceed with the presentation in English about the InvestEU program. And I will give you more general overview about the program, and then my colleague Caterina will continue with the more specific topics about the research field, which is the field you are most interested in. I will start by giving you a little bit of a flavor of where we stand with the program, and what are we going to achieve by then, by when. So as Andres was saying in his introduction, indeed yesterday finally we got an agreement between the European Council and the Parliament on the overall multi-annual financial framework program, so the budget for the next 7 years. You will remember that in July we had this very long council meeting that lasted for some days, and at the time the member states came up with their proposal, which included also the recovery plan and so forth. InvestEU was already launched in 2018, but in view of the COVID crisis this year, we had to reopen the legal base and propose a program which is slightly different from what we had in mind for 2018. In July, our budget was reduced also to make way for other programs more related to the recovery than this, and but it seems that from the agreement that was struck yesterday, we will manage to recover a little bit of money indeed for the guarantee. Where do we stand in terms of negotiation? So at the moment, we are negotiating the legal base, so the European regulation on the InvestEU program with the Council and the Parliament. We have the position of the Council, and now the Parliament should vote this Friday for their own position. Later on, this allows them to go to the trilogues, so-called trilogues, with the European Commission, and this is the last stretch of the negotiation. After which we have a legal base which is adopted, and then we can start implementing the program. Implementing the program means, in the case of InvestEU, of course, distributing the guarantee to all the implementing partners, so the organizations like CDTI and IFIs that will implement this program on our behalf. So this to give you a very short state of play, but don't hesitate to ask questions later on. I'll pass a little bit to the first slide and to show you a little bit what the InvestEU program is about and what we are trying to do. As Andres was rightly saying at the very beginning of his presentation, InvestEU tries to federate a number of different financial instruments that and budgetary guarantee that exist in this programming period. You can see them in this slide under the roof of the house, let's say. And this includes the Juncker Plan, indeed, the European Fund for Strategic Investments, but also some other programs you might be very much familiar with, like the Connecting Europe facility, the COSME program for SMEs, the InnoFin facility, other facilities like EASY for in the social sector and so forth, the cultural and creative sector guarantee facility, a number of instruments which have been developed in different moments of the history within the Commission, and now are put all under the same program. When we proposed the first time InvestEU in 2018, InvestEU was structured across 4 different windows, and you can see them. Below the house. Let's say we have a sustainable infrastructure window, a research, innovation, and digitization window, on which Caterina will give us more detail later on, an SME window for small and medium enterprises, and a social investment and skills window. When we reopened the legal base this year, we added the so-called strategic European investment window, which was supposed a little bit to cater for the recovery from the COVID crisis and for all the concept of strategic autonomy that is being more and more gaining more and more importance within the Commission, let's say, due to the changes in the international landscape, I would say. With the cut in budget that we got, the future of the strategic European investment window is still a little bit uncertain, because with the budget that we'll probably have, we are not sure we will manage to cater for this window as well. To give you an idea, the level of budget that we have now is situates us around 24 to 26 billion in guarantees, and this as opposed to the 75 billions that you can see in the slide, which was our proposal from May 2020, but this was basically cut by the Parliament, by the Council, and now the Parliament agree on the MFF. So let's see what will come up, but we see a guarantee in the region of 24 to 26 billions. This will mobilize, we think, about 300 to 350 billion euros, as opposed to the trillion that you see there. Of course, for the official slides, I still have to use the Commission official line, which is our proposal, of course. But I mean, the reality is that this is evolving fast as we speak. For the rest, this slide also tells us that the InvestEU program is not only about the InvestEU fund. The InvestEU fund is, of course, the most important part to implement the program because it allows us to mobilize investment through the use of the budgetary guarantee. On the other end, you also have the advisory hub, which, if you want, follows the path of the European Investment Advisory Hub that we have today operational with the European Investment Bank for the Juncker Plan. And it also federates a number of different advisory initiatives that exist today in a similar fashion as we do for the financial instruments that you see in the slide. And we have the InvestEU portal, which is the continuation of the European investment project portal, which is already operational today and is a kind of database which showcases the possible projects that might go under InvestEU. So it's a little bit of a matchmaking exercise between the potential investors and the projects that might be proposed. So I'll proceed to the next slide, perhaps. This gives you an idea of how does the program work. So our program is based on a budgetary guarantee. It's very important. It's not a fully funded financial instrument. So it's a budgetary guarantee with a 40% provisioning rate. So only 40% of it is provisioned, and the budgetary guarantee is conveyed to the banks, which we call the implementing partners. Here, a very important novelty introduced by the InvestEU program is the fact that it's not only the European Investment Bank and the European Investment Fund, which have been our traditional implementing partners so far. If you take, I don't know, instruments again like COSME or InnoFin or the Juncker Plan as such, the EFSI. But from the 1st of January 2021, InvestEU will be open to other implementing partners, which are indeed in the area of other international financial institutions. So the EBRD, for instance, or the Council of Europe Bank and so forth, or national promotional banks and institutions like CDTI can be, like ICO can be, Spain, and so forth. So those banks will have direct access, well, not banks, but banks and institutions, entities will have direct access to our InvestEU guarantee. And through the InvestEU guarantee will cover the risk for their operations that can be debt, equity, counter guarantees operations, you name it. But what goes from us to them is a budgetary guarantee. Now, if I go from left to right, let's say, then the implementing partners can, of course, decide either to do direct operation, like a loan, for instance, or to use on their side financial intermediaries, so commercial banks, microfinance providers, venture capital providers, and so forth. Those can be eligible as financial intermediaries. They have to be selected by the implementing partner, and in that case, we have intermediated operations which are still covered by our budgetary guarantee. Then the financing goes to the final beneficiaries, and goes to final beneficiaries which are encapsulated in financial products implemented across the different windows. So each window has a policy focus. And for instance, an implementing partners, let's say the European Investment Bank, for instance, can decide to have a certain financial product, for instance, direct debt loans to, I don't know, transport projects. In that case, it will fall under the infrastructure window, for instance. In case, I don't know, it's for an R&D program, it will fall under the R&D window. But then Katka will say all this in a much better way than me. And another important point, perhaps, that can be perhaps useful for you to know is what you have at the bottom. So the possibility of share management funds, so the structure of funds, to be contributed to the so-called member state compartment of InvestEU. So to be transferred to form part of the InvestEU guarantee, and in that case, the member state compartment would be directed through one of the implementing partners to operation in that country or region. In the case of Spain, for instance, the operational programs are at the level of the Comunidad Autónoma. And so you can take money from the operational program, let's say, of, I don't know, Murcia, and put the money into a member state compartment of InvestEU, which can be devoted to operation in that region and for that area of the, let's say, of the relevant axis of the operational program from which you take the money. In that case, the implementing partner would be chosen by the member state that would sign a contribution agreement with us, and would be able to implement the same type of operations under the mainstream InvestEU. I have a more detailed slide about this later on, so I will come back quickly on this. Now, the 4 windows that you see here were the ones which already existed in 2018. Now, in terms of budget, we are speaking about much less of the figures that you can see. You see here. To give you an idea, we are talking about figures which are basically proportional to the reduction in budget, and the split between the windows is not yet cleared because we are still to clarify with the Council and the Parliament whether the 5th window will survive or not. I will go quickly through those slides, which they will remain with you anyways. But those slides give you a little bit more detail of the policy objectives and or the final recipients targeted for the different windows of investment of InvestEU. So, for instance, in the case of the sustainable window, you see you have very much policy objectives related to greening, the Green Deal, so the greening of the trans-European networks, and so forth. This is a window, for instance, we are developing together with our colleagues in DG Move, DG Ener, DG Environment, and so forth. Then the research, innovation, and digitization window is the window where DG Research and Caterina in particular are very active since day one, and they are developing the products and the policy objectives for this window. We have the small medium small and medium enterprise window, the SME window. This will continue a little bit along the lines of products like Cosme that you might already know. And is a window which is predominantly intermediated financing, basically. And then last but not least, the social investment and skills window, which has a focus on microfinance, social enterprises, social infrastructures, skill, upskilling, reskilling, training, and so forth. And has its own audience, let's say, of final recipients in terms of micro enterprises, social enterprises, and other type of final recipients which are targeting vulnerable groups in society. The strategic European investment window, again, I'm going to cover it in a second, is the new window we included in 2020. And the eligible sectors were critical healthcare infrastructure and key enabling transformative green and digital technologies. So you can see here there is very much the flavor of our new industrial strategy, the digital technology, the green and digital transition that at the moment we are developing, and the critical healthcare infrastructure as a response to the shortcomings we have been seeing during the COVID crisis. So this to give you a little bit the landscape. Now, this is a little bit more technical slides about the risk sharing agreements between us and the implementing partners. Basically, we have two different way of sharing the risk with the implementing partner, one being the pari passu, which we typically see in the for the equity products, for instance. And this simply means that I don't know, let's assume we have a portfolio of 100. The losses that accrue to this portfolio are shouldered like in pari passu by the implementing partner in the commission. So for instance, if we have here a portfolio 100 and we take a loss on this portfolio 10, it will be defined by, I don't know, 5 to 5 if it's a 50-50 pari passu, or 7 to 3 if it's a 70-30, and so forth. So this another very common structure that we already use for some of the financial instruments you saw at the beginning is the so-called first loss piece. First loss piece, where in this case, let's say the first tranche of the losses would be entirely on the commission. And of course, from our point of view, this is, other things being equal, a much riskier structure. Or you have the so-called mezzanine coverage, where the implementing partner is taking the first loss and we only enter at a certain moment in time after a certain number of losses has already been experienced, let's say. So this, all the financial products that we will develop with all the implementing partners will have to follow one of those rules. Here I have another slide on the member state compartment. So as I was saying before, the possibility for structural fund and other share management funds to be conveyed to InvestEU, up to 5% of the envelope. Is not much. In that case, the transfer would represent the 40% provisioning rate, and then you would have a contingent liability that stays on the member states off balance sheet for the remaining 60%. Again, it would be a guarantee because it's always it accrues to the budgetary guarantee of InvestEU. It's still a guarantee, and then the implementing partners can do with this guarantee, they can cover the risk from the products that they deem more adequate and fit to the local reality. So this can be, I don't know, we have here an example of a loan, for instance, for renewal project, an intermediated loan product for renovation of building, or an intermediated equity product for innovative SMEs. Those are possibilities amongst the others. Here, there are some value added of the using InvestEU member state compartment. Typically, why should we transfer those money from grants into a budgetary guarantee? Which is typically the higher leverage, the use of products which are already made available, especially because at the moment you have some managing authorities which are more familiar with the use of financial instruments than others, and then this the product in that case is developed by us with the implementing partner, and the pooling of resources and risk, so ring fencing still the relevant leverage at the local level in terms of geography and at the sectorial level in terms of area. And no need for national co-financing. This is also a very good this is also a very good advantage, as well as the implementation and InvestEU rules, which from the state aid perspective are much less demanding, let's say. Now here, this slide, I mean, I will keep it with you, but again, it's a little bit technical, but it gives you an idea of what is covered by our guarantee for the different type of product. And this slide gives you a little bit of more meat about the services proposed by the InvestEU Advisory Hub, but those are the services mostly that you already have under the current European Investment Advisory Hub. So I'll stop here and I'll give the ball to Caterina.
Thank you, Filippo. Will you be handling the presentation?
Sure.
Thanks a lot.
No problem.
Thank you, and thank you to CDTI for the invitation. It's great to talk to non-financial experts and to the potential users of our products, because essentially that's why we are here and that's why we are working on InvestEU. So maybe if we go to the next slide, Filippo already gave you a background to InvestEU. I want to give you a little bit of a background to the research, innovation and digitization window and to the products that we are developing there. I hope that you already have heard about InnoFin, the EU Finance for Innovators program. If not, it's still not too late to try and benefit from the instruments that we have there. So essentially, under Horizon 2020, we are implementing InnoFin with two of our implementing partners, the European Investment Fund and the European Investment Bank. The EIF is working primarily through an intermediated model. So what Filippo has been explaining before, the fact that they do not provide loans directly to companies, but rather work through intermediaries. So on the equity side, we have a product called InnoFin Equity, where the EIF invests into funds focusing on companies in their early stage, and especially those that are active in innovative sectors. Their main focus is on venture capital funds, but also tech transfer, business angels, and others. And we've also recently put in place specific pilots that you may be aware of. One of them is the InnoFin Artificial Intelligence and Blockchain pilot, under which recently we have signed 6 venture capital funds announcements, or they have been announced in Austria, Finland, Germany, Luxembourg, and in the Netherlands, and which have raised a total of 700 million euros. And these funds will be investing into companies that are developing AI and blockchain solutions or technologies. And we also have InnoFin Space Equity Pilot, where we've also announced earlier this year some investments. Then on the debt side, the EIF is implementing under InnoFin the InnoFin SME guarantee, where it provides guarantees or counter guarantees to national banks, commercial banks, or alternative finance providers, which then provide lending to innovative SMEs or SMEs that are active in digitalization. The loans usually are up to 7.5 million, and SMEC actually has become the largest pan-European guarantee program because we cover all of the EU member states, but also in addition to that, Horizon 2020 associated countries. And since April, because of COVID-19 and the impact it has had on SMEs, the program, as well as COSME, Loan Guarantee Facility, has been enhanced through EFSI with 1 billion of additional funding, thanks to which we are able to provide additional funding to SMEs impacted under COVID-19. The aim is to support up to 100,000 companies for a volume of 8 billion. And as of June of this year, or end of June, we've already supported over 19,000 of companies with 1.7 billion euros. On the EIB side, there we are working in a direct mode, although there are also some intermediate transactions, and I will mention that. So EIB provides direct funding to companies. On the corporate side, we have, for example, the InnoFin Emerging Innovators, where the EIB supports projects from companies in countries that are identified as modest or moderate innovators according to the innovation scoreboard, or InnoFin Science, where the funding is provided to universities or research organizations. And then we have very successful products under the thematic finance heading, successful among companies because we are funding very early stage and risky projects under, for example, the InnoFin EDP, Energy Demonstration Projects, or InnoFin Infectious Diseases. And then, as I mentioned, we also have some intermediated transactions where the EIB on our behalf sets up funds in specific areas. So recently you may have heard about the announcement of the establishment of the Circular Bioeconomy Investment Fund, or earlier this year in February, I believe it was, the Breakthrough Energy Ventures Europe. And these are funds that are actually looking for investment opportunities. So if you in the audience are companies working in these sectors, you can certainly look into this opportunity. And as Filippo has said before, it's not all about only funding, but it's also about advisory support. So we also have InnoFin Advisory, through which the EIB provides legal, financial, different type of advisory support to companies. So this is what we have currently now under InnoFin, and why I'm actually talking so much about it is because we are now working actually on the successor of these type of products under InvestEU, and especially under the research, innovation and digitization window. Although in particular the InnoFin SME guarantee, its successor will be taken up under the SME window because we are mainly targeting SMEs and small mid-caps. So if we go to the next slide, as I've said, all the products are now slowly coming to an end. And InvestEU will be mainly a policy-driven instrument. So that is why in the past months, or mainly throughout this year, we have been working in DG R&I, but also with other colleagues from the Commission on establishing the policy priorities under the research, innovation and digitization window. As you can see, they're mainly in line with the policy priorities of the Commission. So focusing on the twin transitions, which is green and digital. Henceforth, one of the main priorities is the European Green Deal and related policy areas, but also strategic technologies such as digital, key enabling technologies, defense and space. But we also know, and the current pandemic has reminded us, that health sector is also very important, and it's vital for us to ensure that we are prepared for any future, I don't want to say pandemic, but for any future health crisis. So these are the main priorities that we would like our products that will be implemented not only by EIB and EIF, but also other implementing partners to target. So if we go to the next slide, I will now show you what we have in mind in terms of the main products to be deployed under the research, innovation, and digitization window. We're currently in the design phase, and therefore please note the caveat that no final decisions on this product has been taken yet, but it will give you an idea of what is coming and at least give you an overall picture. So the first one is a directed product that is going to replace to some extent innovation funding that is currently done under EFSI, but also products such as Innofin Science or Innofin Emerging Innovators that I mentioned earlier. It would be direct corporate lending to SMEs, small mid-caps, but also large corporates, those that are doing projects in the policy priority areas that I've just mentioned. But also we will be providing financing support to research, innovation, and digitization projects that are coming from universities, research and technology infrastructures, and others. The main type of funding would be loans, guarantees, but also quasi-equity, because the venture debt product under EFSI has been quite successful as it offers a non-dilutive equity risk capital that is paid back based on the performance of the company. And it's important to know that we are following what we've been done until now under Innofin, so we do not cover the entirety of the project cost, but always up to 50%. Then when we go to the next slide, you will see that, of course, we also plan to continue with the thematic products that we currently have. So the first one, it's not on the slide yet, but the first one is the joint product that we have in mind with the sustainable infrastructure window, which is essentially a continuation and a slight expansion, or quite a major expansion of the Innofin EDP product, but also of CEF Future Mobility. And there the objective would be to address the difficulties that companies face in accessing funding for early demonstration projects or for rolling out innovative technologies and services. The sectors, as the name of the product suggests, are mainly those relating to the European Green Deal. And the focus is really on innovative early demonstration projects that target non-mature technologies or business models, or the setting up of manufacturing plants. So therefore, in our jargon, it's a thematic product because it is high risk and addresses a high policy value. A second product, a thematic product that we have in mind, is the continuation of the Innofin Infectious Disease facility, which now we would call maybe Health Innovation Investments. Maybe it's going to be slightly different. And there, our colleagues have also worked on fine-tuning the targeted areas of the product. The focus would be on clinical trials, validation, and market entry of these type of let's say, drugs, vaccines, diagnostic therapeutics for these different diseases. But once again, we still need to get feedback from the various implementing partners from the EIB and others to see which areas they would be able to cover. I've started, when talking about Innofin, I've started with the EIF products, but now actually I'm going to end with a product that we have in mind together with the EIF, but also with other implementing partners potentially. And it is a joint product between the research, innovation, and digitalization window and the SME window, which would build on what we are currently doing under Innofin Equity, but also COSME Equity for Growth. As such, we would no longer have this split between a product that targets early stage companies and another product under a different program that is targeting growth stages. We will merge these two to have a joint, more bigger and effective product, which would have for its objective to ensure availability of risk capital for early and growth stage companies. And it would target various issues. One of them would be targeting funds of specific policy value. So we would continue our strong support to technology transfer funds, but also to funds with specific investment strategies targeting the Green Deal, digital technologies, life sciences, space, defense, and many others, once again, in line with the priorities that we have set up. Funds that would be supporting the development of a more diversified pan-European capital market, so continuing our co-investment with business angels, but also, and it's something actually new because we haven't put so much emphasis on it in the current programs, but it would be support to funds that are either run by women or which are investing with a gender lens, or actually a diversity lens in general. And then also we would like to focus, as you've seen mentioned in various commission material and documents, on accompanying companies through the IPO phase. And I would like to end with the last slide by talking what we have in mind beyond financial products, because once again, advisory is a very important part of the product offer under InvestEU, but under the InvestEU Advisory Hub. And there, once again, we are planning to join forces with the SME window in order to continue the support we provide to companies in terms of project advisory, and therefore, in this sense, building a healthy pipeline of projects under InvestEU, or also preparing these companies and projects to be funded under other programs or by private investors. We will also be putting in place capacity building programs to strengthen the ability of various financial intermediaries to develop and support finance, to support projects in specific sectors, because sometimes the reason why we do not see sufficient investments in the area of green and digital can be also the little knowledge that the intermediaries have in terms of assessing these type of projects. And lastly, we will also support market development activities. For example, currently under InnoFin Advisory, the InnoFin Advisory has developed several studies for us based on which we have actually established new products to target specific areas like infectious diseases, in fact, or the circular bioeconomy platform. So that's another area. I will stop there because we only have 15 minutes, and we would be interested to hear your questions and develop any of these points that you would like to hear about.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Caterina, and thank you, Filippo. Yes, you can switch on your camera so we can see you and have a little discussion with you. I have myself several questions, but let me give the floor to Santiago first, because I think he is the one who has read more about InvestEU in SOST office. So Santiago, you may have one question or comment, please.
Yeah, before we go with the Slido questions, that yeah, I encourage our audience to enter the Slido platform and ask some questions for our speakers. Well, for Filippo, you mentioned before a little bit the different positions, commission, and the council with the cuts. The parliament itself has stated a position with amendments in the end of October that was like very ambitious. If I'm not wrong, it was near to 91 billion with guarantees. But after the approval of the MFF package, do you see a margin for these negotiations between Parliament and Council, a margin of getting closer to this Parliament position?
Yes, well, no, we have to see, of course, but I would say not much, because with the agreement that they struck yesterday, de facto, the Parliament at the horizontal level gave up on a number of demands that they had. So there is some increase. There is a top up that was announced to the press, I think, in the area of 15 billion overall for different programs. But again, we had to see what comes to InvestEU out of this. I mean, certainly we are not going to get the 92 billions of guarantee that you can see in the Parliament report. Well, to be very, very honest.
Too ambitious, I guess. And then for Katarina, we saw in the presentation that in the rules that there's like stipulated in the sustainable infrastructure window 60% of targeting the EU Commission objectives. Is there something similar in the research and innovation window, or is nothing envisioned like that?
No, we do not have a target in the research, innovation and digitalization window, but there is an overall target for InvestEU. I think it was 40%. So I'm not sure whether it hasn't been changed in the meantime. But of course, as you can see from the priorities that we've set up, the green transition plays an important role also under the RID window, and as such, we expect that we will contribute substantially as well to climate and to environment objectives.
Thanks so much. So what I will do next is I'll share my screen with the...
Yes, Santi, go ahead. Let me just ask one follow-up question to Katarina. Because I think you mentioned at a certain point when you talked about the general debt product, you mentioned not only guarantees, but loan and equity, quasi-equity. Could you elaborate a bit more? So it's not only guarantees, what we can do with you under InvestEU?
Indeed. I think it was also mentioned in Filippo's presentation that there are different products that the guarantee can support, the InvestEU guarantee can support. And one of them is that the implementing partners that will be working with us would then be, thanks to the guarantee we provide them, providing direct loans to companies or equity investments into funds, or equity type investments such as venture debt, which we know from discussions with the EIB, but also with companies that have applied to funding under InnoFin, that they really like this type of support, which doesn't dilute them, which they can repay based on certain milestones that they achieve in the project. So indeed, the support that can be then provided to the final companies goes beyond guarantee support.
Thank you. Santi, go ahead. Let's see what the audience have to say. All right. So okay, the first one. So I think we missed the first part of the question. No? How could be in this case a combination? All right. So I guess we're talking, Filippo, about what you've mentioned on the member states compartment and the possibility to transfer funds from the structural funds. Could you then elaborate a bit more on this case, please? Filippo? Can you hear me?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
Oh.
Okay. Sorry, I think there is a part of the question, I don't know, is missing, or perhaps it was a questions in two parts anyways.
Yes.
So the combination with the structural fund, again, is entirely on a voluntary basis from the managing authority. So they can decide whether they want to do this or not. And in that case, the amount of structural fund contributed to InvestEU would become a part of our budgetary guarantee, and as such will be given to an implementing partner, which is chosen by the managing authority in question. So I don't know, the region of Andalusia can say, for instance, I want CDTI to implement this for me, and they will do it through InvestEU. So through a budgetary guarantee that we give to an implementing partner, and then the implementing partner can use this budgetary guarantee to cover the risk on his products like debt, equity, guarantees. So it would work exactly in the way that it works with the normal InvestEU, with the exception that the budget would come from the operational programs, basically in this case. And I think there is another question which is linked to that. There was a question about the state aid.
Yes.
Yes, you mentioned lighter state aid rules. Yes. About this, yes, to give you a little bit of more detail, there is a consultation on the so-called general block exemption rules, which is at the moment under is going on and is managed by our colleagues in DG Competition, which try to tailor the state aid rules to the reality of a product which is based on financial instruments. You know, one of the main aspects of InvestEU, what we want to do is to crowd in private investors. And of course, an instrument which crowds in the private sector money and is done with on a market-conform basis requires a stated treatment which is lighter than what you would have in case of grants, for instance. And we are reviewing these general block exemption rules to make sure that they can fit the InvestEU program. There was a first consultation that was launched last year by DG Comp, and there is another one which is going on in those days, I think.
Indeed.
And this, of course, adds to the appeal, let's say, of the InvestEU and the member state compartment.
All right, Filippo. Let's move ahead then. Next one. Good morning. Could you please elaborate a bit on the funding for space-related companies? Especially to know if this is a useful source of funding for space and defense-related startups. This is from an SME having received the SME instrument phase 1 funding, I think.
Yes.
Katrina?
Yes. So at the moment, we have, as I mentioned, under InnoFin, a space pilot that was set up also thanks to our collaboration at that time with DG Grow, but now the colleagues are in the new DG DEFI. And there we, EIF, on our behalf, invest into funds whose strategies target downstream and upstream space technologies. If I'm not mistaken, we had at least one fund that was signed with the EIF, and there was Primo Miglio in Italy, but there might be also others. So I would suggest that you have a look at the InnoFin Equity page of the EIF and see who are the intermediaries with whom they are working. They have a specific tab, and there you can see and find the various funds. So for me, it certainly would be a relevant funding source for startups in the space and also defense phase, because as I said, coming forward under InvestEU, defense is also one of the priorities. And so certainly I would suggest that you have a look at it. It really depends on where you are with your product and technology, how early stage, because if you received SME instrument phase 1 funding, you could maybe still be also eligible for the EIC accelerator. So that's another area where you could have a look. All
right, very interesting. Yeah, so there's a certain continuity there, which is really good. I think that's what the companies need. And then the next question goes like that. If, for example, the result of a project from nature-based solutions would be successful and the local government through a public company would like to deploy it at a larger scale, could they go for a loan? To which window? Infrastructure?
That's a very good question, actually, because I haven't talked about the key objectives, let's say, of the RID window as opposed to others, because we are focusing on the research, innovation, development, digitization, and early deployment. Whereas the sustainable infrastructure really targets large-scale deployment of products. In our discussions, we have made the distinction that when you're deploying a product and there is still a technology risk, such type of projects could be still financed under the RID window. But if rather there is a market risk, then such a project should fall under the sustainable infrastructure window. So it's something that would be assessed probably by the implementing partner who has a product under either or both of the windows. From what you write, I would say probably more the sustainable infrastructure window. That would be the right place to go.
Good. So the answer is yes. Then we'll have to see how. Okay.
Yes.
Good. Then the next one is, okay, interesting presentations. Thank you. Dates for approval, and so when the new instruments will be in place. That's the question, basically.
Yes, I would need, I don't know if you can see me. Yeah. Would need my crystal ball a little bit, but to give you an idea, we are doing everything we can to get the regulation approved already this year. So before Christmas, we might end up in the first part of January, but I mean, no, not later than that, I hope. So let's say December 2020, January 2021 for the approval of the regulation. Then we would look, I think, around February, March for the call for expression of interest to divide the guarantee between the various implementing partners. And then to sign the guarantee agreement with them probably around summer 2021. And once we assign the guarantee agreement, the implementing partner can start proposing their own operations, so they can start using the coverage of our guarantee.
All right. This taking into account that the implementing partners, you call it, need to go through an implementing validation, let's say, or process or audit, or whatever it's called, and this can take
the pillar assessment.
Some time. The pillar assessment, correct?
Yeah. Yes, this might take some time. You have implementing partners which have already started, they are very well advanced. I think 2 or 3 have already finalized it. Yes, that it depends a little bit. We have seen processes which take 2-3 months, and we have seen processes which are a little bit longer so far. But yeah, absolutely, that's a first step to be undertaken by the implementing partner.
Good. And we have one last question here. What are, if there is any common set of rules for all intermediaries, the risk evaluation factors used by intermediaries at national, regional level? Do they have to take into account if the project is a result of a previously EU-funded project? Okay. You get the question more or less? I guess it's talking about the levels of risk, no? Of projects.
Yes, I think, I don't know, perhaps Caterina can complement. I mean, as we don't give guidance about risk management and other due diligence, let's say, due diligence requirements to the implementing partners, nor to the financial intermediaries of those implementing partners. So no, there is not such a common set of rules, because also if you consider the level of risk of the assets where you are going to invest, probably this is going to change according to from one country to the other. Probably the risk appetite that a bank in Austria might face is not the one that the bank in Portugal will face on the certain type of product. Then on the do they have to take into account if the result the project is a result of a previously EU-funded project? I don't think there is something. There is certainly nothing mandatory. I don't know, Caterina, if you know, in practice probably they might. I would guess that they will in practice, but I don't know.
Well, for example, for the thematic finance products I was talking about, there is a question, or we do ask whether the project has been funded through other EU sources, but it's not a plus point and it's not a minus point. It's just good for us as the Commission to know where the projects are actually coming from, and if the support we provide, for example, grant support under Horizon 2020, is then successful and helps the company to move further in the technology readiness level scale, for example, and then at another milestone ask for funding from a private source. So it's rather as an interest point for us, but it's not mandatory, and I don't think that all of the intermediaries actually ask about it.
Okay. Okay, so we still have 2 more questions to go. So if you don't mind, we'll take 3, 4 more minutes of your time, and we will be done. So the next one is, okay, who can I address in Spain to help me with this process? Good question. You should go to Brussels. That's my answer. No.
No, I think the main point of call will be for the InvestEU program will be the implementing partner. Once we have an agreement, a guarantee agreement with the implementing partner, and I don't know, if you take Spain, ICO, CDTI, or so forth, they know that they have a certain amount of guarantee for us to implement a product in the field, I don't know, a depth product in the field of space, then your first point of call will probably be the implementing partner. And so at the moment, indeed, if you want to have support from the Juncker plan, for instance, you have to go to Luxembourg because this is where the EIB is. Okay, the EIB has also very large regional office in Madrid, I know, but we have only one implementing partner, which is de facto sitting in Luxembourg. And the idea of the InvestEU program is to get a little bit more local and to allow project promoters which perhaps don't have the horsepower to go to Luxembourg to have a point of contact at their member states level, and typically being the national promotional bank or the implementing partner in this country. Then is, of course, the way they are organized is different. I don't know if you take France, CDC has regional offices everywhere in France. If you go to Italy, the situation is different. And ICO, I think in Spain, and you are more of a hybrid model in terms. I don't know, Andres, if you have presence in all the regions in Spain or not, but that would be the first port of call for me.
Yes, yeah, indeed. No, in our case, CDTI is only based in Madrid. Yes, but well, I think we take the point is something we need to clarify once we have the picture of who will be the implemented partners at national level, for sure. All right. So the last question, I guess, it's simply. In case this is an example, a regional entity aiming to deploy space services infrastructures in their region, could they still go directly to the EIB? So there is implementing partners, but as you said, there is a big chunk going through the EIB Group or EIB and EIF. So just to confirm this.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, sorry, Katrin.
No, good. I wanted to say yes as well. And also, for example, you do not have to wait until InvestEU is enforced to go and ask the EIB, because already now under FC, EIB has financed a number of space-related projects. So you can always go already now to start discussing and see whether a project could be financed now or in the future period. But since the discussion always takes some time, it's better to go whenever you're ready with your project proposal.
And just a very maybe detailed, but if the process of putting in place InvestEU takes longer than expected, the current instruments will follow, or they will stop in any case 31st of December 2020.
So, for example, the thematic products, actually the signature date is until 2022. So they will be able to continue even when InvestEU is in place. But of course, one big question is the budget, because whenever the budget is depleted, then not. but Filippo will be able to say maybe a bit more, that we are putting in place some measures to ensure that there is no gap between the instruments we have now and InvestEU.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Caterina. It's good that we gave the same answer, at least. No, indeed, we are working on the so-called warehousing provision, so that for the products which are already existing and are managed by the EIB and the EIF, you wouldn't see, as the final recipients, you wouldn't see the bump, let's say, between the two programming periods, and you would have a situation whereby the EIB could already process the adoption of certain operations, which later on, once we sign the guarantee agreement, are going to end up under InvestEU. So this is something we are devising because I mean, it's not whether we will be late. We are already late because we got the agreement on the MFF yesterday. So basically 1 month before the new programming period starts. And basically we bet the record of 2013 when we got the agreement in March, if I remember correctly. So this time it's even closer to the starting date of the new programming period. And of course we are living through exceptional times, but yeah, we will have provisions in place so that the final recipients, they don't perceive the gap between the two programming periods. Wow.
Okay. All right. So 7 minutes after our expected time, we finish. Thank you very much to both. Thank you, Caterina, and thank you, Filippo, for your time. And let me agradecer también a David, que está ahí. ¿Veis? Un David Martínez. Hay muchos Martínez en esta sesión, pero hay un David Martínez que está ahí escondido y es el que nos ha ayudado a hacer el vínculo con la DG ECFIN. Ahí lo tenemos. Es nuestro experto nacional destacado en DG ECFIN. Así que también a ti muchísimas gracias, David. Si quieres decirnos algo, te dejamos. Dale, ahí está.
En español, agradecer a todos los que habéis participado en esta presentación, que aprovechéis la oportunidad desde el principio, porque esto lleva tiempo. Y nada, supongo que la mayoría ya estaréis involucrados de alguna manera en estos programas con otros nombres, y a los que no estéis, pues que bueno, son cosas que llevan tiempo la primera vez, pero no deja de ser un procedimiento administrativo, o sea que es algo que se puede hacer.
Vale, pues en eso estamos, David. Vamos a ver el tiempo y la energía que nos lleva todo esto a algunos.
And thank you very much to Filippo and Caterina for the support on this, and see you soon within the Commission. Thank you.
Indeed.
Gracias. Thank you very much again. Marina, unas últimas palabras si quieres. Gracias.
Sí, bueno, aparte de reiterar los agradecimientos tanto a mis compañeros de la SOS como a los compañeros de la Comisión que han hecho posible esta jornada, nada, emplazaros para la próxima sesión online de SOST CDTI, que continúa con la tradición de hacer un recorrido por los diferentes partnerships que van a ponerse en marcha a partir de 2021 con el próximo programa marco Organizó Europe. Y en esta ocasión, a final de noviembre, tendremos con nosotros una sesión dedicada al partenariado Made in Europe. En este caso se trata de un partenariado co-program, lo cual quiere decir que el dinero íntegramente viene de la Comisión y que los topics de este partenariado se ejecutan a través de los diferentes programas de trabajo de los clústeres. Y bueno, va dirigido a conseguir o a contribuir a una industria de fabricación europea que sea más competitiva a nivel global y resiliente, especialmente con las situaciones con las que nos estamos haciendo frente actualmente. Y nada más. Tendréis el anuncio en la plataforma habitual de CDTI y a través de los medios de comunicación y listas de distribución. Gracias.
Somehow you just don't belong and no one understands you. Do you ever want to run away? Do you lock yourself in your room with the radio on turned up so loud that no one hears you screaming? No, you don't know what it's like when nothing feels alright. up to my life.